Okay, it's 7:48 on Tuesday, July 12th. I'd like to call the regular council meeting of the city of Twinsburg to order. Shannon, would you call the roll?
Mr. Scafidi?
Here.
Mr. Ceresi?
Here.
Ms. McFerrin?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Here.
Mr. Roden?
Here.
Mr. Steele?
Here.
Okay, before we start the meeting, I would like to just hold a moment of silence this evening for the victims, for the families, and for the people of Orlando, of Baton Rouge, St. Paul, and of Dallas. Thank you. Now, if you rise, we'll have the invocation and pledge allegiance. Father, we ask for your guidance and direction in all city matters before us tonight. We give thanks to be able to be together. Let us continue to strive to make our community a better place. Help us to work together, and may we always give our best always. Amen. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, next we have the approval of the minutes from the June 28th meeting. Council, any changes? Okay, hearing none, the meeting stands as written. Approved. Excuse me. All right, next, audience participation. Shannon?
Yes. First, we have Terry Pateo.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I just wanted to take the moment to thank the water park, Park and Recreations, and all the lifeguards employees there. They did an awesome job. They collected over 5,000 pounds of food from July 4th through the 9th. And that was an amazing thing. Also, Officer Beata and his junior officers had a small food drive and collected nearly $300 and nearly 300 pounds of food. And we served 982 individuals. 252 of them were seniors, 317 were children. And our need continues to grow, and we very much appreciate Twinsburg's support.
You're with the Community Hunger Center in Twinsburg.
Right.
Yes. Did I not say that?
No.
Yeah. I'm from our Community Hunger Center in Twinsburg.
Hi, Terry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you.
Next, we have Bob Hughes.
Good evening, Bob Thews, 2229 Demi Drive, Meadowwood. I think it's my first visit here. No, it isn't. Okay. Hey, look, I worked 47 years in manufacturing. Okay. Of that, the last 25 years that I was in manufacturing, my job was to help rescue companies and save companies. Okay. As a result of that, I learned something very important, and that is most of the companies I went into that weren't they didn't have any accountability. Okay, no one was accountable for what everybody had a lot of good lip service. Okay, but nobody was accountable. Okay, so I went to that meeting, that special meeting we had last week. And we talked about the resolution, but we weren't supposed to talk about what was in the resolution, which I don't know how you can do that if you don't can do it that way. But anyway, the discussion did come up about the roundabout a little bit, and there was a good discussion on the council. The council went back and forth quite a bit, and there were some good suggestions. One of them was, hey, why don't we do a survey? Okay. I think it's a great idea. I think kind of like what Councilman Steele says, and Councilman Fury just stated, it's probably about 6 months too late to conduct one. But we thought it would be good to. We thought that would be a great idea, as well as looking at other options. Well, I'm glad I came tonight to see that there's responsible members of council. Mr. Fury brought the issue up about a survey, brought an example of one to do it. I think that's a great idea. I think that you need to get the opinion of the people, and you know, but to some extent, I admire the mayor. You know, at least he's kind of blatant that he's not going to hear anything from those lowlifes up there in Ward 5. What do they know about roads, or what do they know about situations like that? He kind of indicated we're kind of an ignorant bunch of people up there. You know, from the standpoint, we don't really know anything. But I guess I should apologize for that. I apologize because I understand the mayor did go up there and talk to some of the residents. Okay, he must have had a discussion. He said he found overwhelming support. Well, Mayor, you had to struggle to do that. You had to. You must have went quite a while through the community because while you guys were since last meeting, we started a survey. We started a survey on the internet on our We Live in Meadowood account, and we're conducting a survey right now. Right now, we found 15 people that are for the roundabout, and 80 some are against it. So the ratio is about 6 to 1 against, if you want a rough number. Now that doesn't. We Live in Meadowood doesn't include everybody. It was a straight up and down vote on whether you want it or not, and it was posed very non-politically on how it would go, and the only comment that was made was political at all was in favor of the circle for the safety study that the numbers you cited. But for the most part, even with that, the vote is still going 6 to 1 against it. So, you know, Councilman Seal, you're right. They ought to listen to the people once in a while. They ought to pay attention to what the people is. Councilman Fury, you're right. Let's find out more about this. Let's not play any more games with it. Now's the time to do it. There are, you know, the problem, and your engineer will tell you this.
1 minute.
Any funds that you have to go to submit, they have to be done a year or 2 years ahead of time. You're all aware of that. So she's submitting funds for that circle now. Okay, so her situation is, you know, as far as I'm concerned, is tell me what you want me to do, one way or the other, and you're not doing that. So all I would like to say is I think it's a great idea to have a survey. Our survey indicates, like right now, it's 6 to 1 against. So if you want to take a look at the survey, we'll show you the survey. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Ray Deersing.
Good evening, everyone. Ray Deersing, 3500 Cannon Road. At the last council meeting, I mentioned a number of items in Ordinance 65, the Rental Dwelling Housing License Code, that I feel are discriminatory and offensive. During that meeting, we all heard from others who expressed their concerns, questions, opinions, and interpretations of Ordinance 65. The interpretation regarding internal inspections being one of them, that they are only done at the request of either the tenant or the landlord. Where Section 1369.14, right of entry, B reads, the owner and or occupant shall give free access by appointment to the interior of any dwelling for the purpose of inspection. Another section states the building inspector may conduct an internal inspection. This is in Section 10, license issuance. Ohio Legal Services states that the Ohio landlord-tenant law prohibits a landlord from requesting a tenant's home to be inspected by the local government housing inspector. That book is this thick. I also read quotes from the ACLU, a Supreme Court ruling, the Institute for Justice, and the 1851 Center for Constitutional Law regarding interior inspections without a warrant. It violates the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. It was pointed out we already have laws and procedures to address all the concerns brought out in previous meetings. If I may, I'd like to give each of you some photos and the checklist of the internal checklist. Can I pass them out, please?
Shannon will do it.
I don't want to drop them.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
These are yours to keep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, these are yours to
Thank
keep.
you.
Do what you said you would.
Thank you.
Now, the external checklist of a rental. I'll go over it quickly. Sidewalks and driveways, pass and fail. Weeds, pass or fail. Exterior accessory structures, motor vehicles, protective treatment, premise identification, roofs and drainage, stairwells, decks, porches and balconies, windows, skylights and door frames, electrical system hazards. Now that is the checklist calling for in your ordinance 65. The pictures I passed out to you, I asked, would this property pass inspection? I am quite certain no one wants this property next door or in our city. It was mentioned at the last council meeting that presently we do not have a problem with exteriors of properties in regards to conditions that would constitute a blighting or deteriorating influence on the neighborhoods and the community. And we want to keep it that way. With exception of a few people, I think most of us would agree with those assessments. Section 10, housing license issuance. C, when an inspection of the rental property during the external inspection reveals violations, a corrective order is issued pursuant to Chapter 1313, Section 107 of the International Property Maintenance Code, and enforce such order as provided therein. In Ordinance 65, the landlord is given 60 days to make corrections or face penalties. Section 1369.99 penalty in Ordinance 65C states that refusal, neglects, or fails to comply with the provisions of this code shall be guilty of a misdemeanor, and upon conviction shall be fined not less than $25 or more than $1,000 for each day the violation occurs. The property in the picture and the conditions shown have been going on for at least 6 or 7 years. This property, if Ordinance 65 were followed, would represent fines ranging from $40,000 to $1.5 million. The city adopted the International Property Maintenance Code 9 years ago.
1 minute.
That applies to all properties in the city. Yet, for whatever reasons, we still have a few problems. The tools are presently available to use to address any rental property problems or maintenance issues with the various federal, state, county, or our own local ordinances that are already in effect. If you don't know what tools you have or know how to use them, you don't add another one. And last, I'd like to close. I sent a copy of Ordinance 65 to the Institute for Justice in Washington and the 1851 Center for Constitutional Law in Columbus, asking to clarify for me if the proposed ordinance is discriminatory and or unconstitutional. As yet, I have not received an answer from either one, but I will be shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we have Michael Turl.
Good evening, Council Mayor. I wasn't really planning on speaking about this roundabout, so I'm kind of speaking in two different things. We have been hearing ever since the first proposal of these roundabouts years ago, before we had the 91 Glenwood, about how safe these things are. It's much safer. This and that. That seems to be the leading factor in all of this. I'm curious where the data is coming from on this. I'd like to see it, or at least know the source or whatever, so I can research myself. I've done some checking. It's been posted on social media more than a few times. The AMAT's high crash intersections test scores from 2012, 2014, these are as current as they have, because we keep talking about AMATs. We get AMATs funding and this and that, and I would think that their data would be somewhat reliable. Glenwood Liberty Roundabout. Now, these scores are compiled by average daily traffic, total crashes, crash rate, severity index, and they come up with a composite score. The intersection of Glenwood and Route 91 is being compared to the Maslin-Steese intersection in Green that we're planning on getting. You know, they say, well, it's going to be very similar to that, 2-lane roundabout, 2 lanes approaching. Right now, on these scores here, Maslin-Steese has a composite score of 164.4, has 10,000 cars per day, 10,790, almost 10,800 cars per day. Total of 21 crashes, I'm guessing, in that 2-year period. Crash rate 1.78, severity index 1.19, composite score of 164.4. Right now, Glenwood Liberty is at, with 11,400 cars, a composite score of 154.9. So Liberty Glenwood is just slightly safer than this Maslin-Steese. A better comparison to that is Darrow Road and Aurora Road, State Route 82 and 91. That has a composite score with 32,580 cars, a composite score of 123. Right now, 91 and 82 is, according to the way I'm reading the AMAT's test scores, 91 and 82 is safer than Liberty Glenwood. And the Maslin-Steese is worst of all, and that's what we're planning on putting in Glenwood in 91. Currently, Glenwood 91 isn't even on the list out of the top 250 high crash intersections. So I guess I'm confused as to where the safety factor really comes from in all of this, because what I'm seeing, maybe you guys can just, you don't have to give me all the paperwork, just let me know where you're getting your data from as to this intersection style being safer, because what I'm seeing here is not. What I really wanted to come up and speak about, so I'm going to change gears here. Last week at the special election, we had Resolution 75, 2016 was passed by a 4-2 vote, I believe, on its first reading. The emergency measure was taken off. I checked with the lovely Miss Shannon, and she was going through, and I asked members of council, and they said it would be best. So this is probably mostly directed at Mr. Maestros, and Mr. Yates, as you're an attorney in municipal law and stuff. Section 310, ordinances and resolutions. All legislative action by council shall be introduced. 1 minute? Oh, man. Okay, I'm going to cut through some of this. No bylaw, ordinance, or resolution of a general or permanent nature, or granting of a franchise, or creating a right, or involving the expenditure of money, or levying of tax, and distinctly, or the purchase, lease, sale, or transfer of property shall be passed unless it has been fully and distinctly read on 3 different days. There shall be no authority to dispense this rule except by a vote of 5 members of council, and that's the emergency clause. So I guess I'm confused as to how we passed a resolution without the emergency measure on 1 reading. It just seems to me that if this were to be challenged, as we've had other things challenged before, that this would get tossed out. If there's anything within 310, if it's somewhere else in the charter, perhaps you could enlighten me. I'd appreciate that. But I don't see how a resolution can pass only on 1 reading unless it has the emergency clause. And I'm probably just about out of time. Thank you.
Shannon, anyone else?
Yes. MJ Soledad?
MJ Soldat, 8936 Depot Street. My first thing is about the rental. inspections. I am a renter. And basically, first of all, I just want to know, what is the reason for the ordinance? I mean, what's happened, or, what was the reason that someone came up with this ordinance for the rental inspections?
It'll be answered later.
It'll be answered. You can
Pardon?
Continue.
It'll be answered.
It won't be answered now.
Okay. And then also, I want to know why multi-building units are exempted. I mean, they're renters also. So, I mean, I don't understand the delineation. And then the second thing is just a comment about the roundabouts. I am not all that familiar with the two-lane roundabout that's going in, and I've never driven a two-lane roundabout, but I have been on many single-lane. And the one at Glenwood and Liberty, it wouldn't be so bad if there wasn't so much hardscape and landscape, but if I'm in a small car and I'm short, I cannot see almost to where the two side streets are, let alone across the roundabout. Roundabout safety and efficiency comes from the fact that when you pull up, you can see all the traffic movement. I mean, that's everyone I've ever been on. I've felt safe because I can see who's coming, who's going, everything. When I come to Liberty and Glen, actually, I avoid it now because I am one of those people that'll sit there for 5 minutes to make sure I can pull out because I can't see across it. So that's the only comment I have about that, is that the safety and efficiency was defeated on that particular roundabout because of the making it pretty, I guess. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's it.
That's it? Okay. Anybody have any comments? Mayor.
I just want to address Mr. Hughes. I wasn't trying to create an issue and talk down, I guess, to the people of Meadowwood or any resident in this city. I think, council, this is a frustrating topic. I think on both sides is a frustrating topic. This has been in the works for years. At least 5 or 6 years ago, I emceed a public meeting over at the school on this topic. We've had numerous meetings here. Council has had endless discussions both on the floor and outside of these rooms regarding this topic. We've talked to, and I walked every house in Meadowwood. That was part of the specific, for me, when I was campaigning to go to that area, because I was anticipating getting a lot of comments and feedback regarding that roundabout. And I of all the people I talked to, 2 people discussed it. And when I shared how we got to that decision, I think a lot of people realized or came to some conclusion that we sat in a room one day and just said, oh, roundabout would be really cool here. And that's how council came to that, or the previous mayor came to that. And that's not the case. We have 2 issues that we were trying to deal with. One was safety, one was traffic. By doing that, we went to ODOT. ODOT came to us and said, here's what you want to do. And council pulled back and said, wait a minute, 2 roundabouts. We're not sure the residents are going to feel about this. They went through the data. They went through the surveys. We hired independent engineers to look at what ODOT was doing. They came back with that same conclusion. There was a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of research, a lot of traveling at our own expense to try to make sure we were making the right decision for this community. Mr. Scafidi said it back in 2014. This city's very good at trying to plan and progress and keep up with modern design and technology and keep the city moving forward. I mean, we spend a lot of time and effort doing that. And this council did that. If you look at some of the discussions back in 2014, there's clips of Mr. Fury that could not lay it out any better of why a roundabout is a better option at that particular intersection. So I wasn't trying to insult any resident in your neighborhood and anyone around here. What I'm saying is that I don't know that any of the residents have done the kind of research. We were all elected to serve the people. I believe I was elected by Meadowwood. The majority of those people in there elected me to come be here, knowing my position. My position on this has not changed, ever. You're not going to find one clip outside of this room or in this room that says that I didn't support this project from day one, okay? A lot of other people have had the same positions as me and they're sitting up here today elected by the people to make decisions. I think it's difficult when we go to residents without the information that we try to get it all out there. Our website has links to studies and you know, a lot of simulations and everything we've tried to put out as much as possible. But when I go to meetings and I hear people say, I don't want that roundabout, I don't like them. Well, why don't you like them? I just got a feeling it's not going to work. And so it's hard for me to make my decision off of a feeling of a resident who hasn't been exposed to the exact same amount of information that I have. Because I couldn't do that. I couldn't put the lives of our residents and all those traveling through the city in the hands of a feeling that I had in my stomach. So I know it was a little long-winded to respond to that, but that's where I'm at with this.
Okay. Anybody else have any comments? Yes, sir. Mr. Maestros.
I'd like to respond to the question Mr. Turtle raised. It's an excellent question, and we've had this before. And I think the easiest way to answer it is whether it's a resolution, an ordinance, or a bylaw. I mean, let's just refer to it as legislative action by council, okay? Because there's no real distinction. There is a little bit, I'll get to it, but there's no real distinction. If it's a legislative action of council, it comes down to whether or not it has to be read on 3 different days. And our charter is pretty similar to revised code and other charters, that being that if it's something that's not of a general or permanent nature or falls under those other categories, granting a franchise, creating a right, involving expenditure of money. And Mr. Turrell made reference to the last one that talks about purchase, lease, sale, or transfer of property. And that's really not what was going on with that particular resolution last week. That was a resolution to submit an application. And what I have done since I have been law director is treated all legislative actions that are general or that are not general or permanent in nature as resolutions. Everything else has been an ordinance, which requires, and we treat it as requiring the 3 readings unless council passes by emergency. So what does that leave? And what that basically leaves has been the resolutions or legislative actions of council where they recognize August as bike month or recognize May as motorcycle month, or do these one-time acts, okay? One-time acts that it's a recognition, or a one-time act of allowing, whether it's the police department, fire department, engineering department, to file an application, okay? And it's simply required to file an application. And the only reason we have to have any legislative action on that is because the entities that disperse those funds require a resolution of council, which is just council's acknowledgement that the application is being filed. And that's all it is an application at this point. So it's the events that are one-time acts are presented to council as a resolution. The other permanent and general nature are presented as ordinances. It's been the easiest way to do that. I have done that since 2006, if you go back and look. And we make... we'll almost always make reference to that this is not an action that is general or permanent in nature. So that's the distinction between the two, and that's why if this was anything other or fell in those categories, we would just do it by an ordinance. But you're right, a resolution in and of itself doesn't mean it doesn't have to be read for 3 days. It still could be read for 3 days if it falls under those categories. There's no real distinction other than a resolution, the waiting period is 10 days. An ordinance, the waiting period is 30 days after passage. So even though it passed last week without the emergency, it didn't pass there's still a 10-day waiting period on that resolution. As we sit here today, there's that 10 days hasn't passed. So that's the distinction.
I heard that, going around regarding that situation. So if you want a second opinion, that particular, I think the interpretation and the intent when I read into this also is that if it wasn't meant to allow for resolutions to be read that aren't of a permanent general nature, then we wouldn't have all the exceptions in there. It would just read, no bylaw, ordinance, resolution shall be passed unless it's been fully read. But instead, it goes on to identify different areas that specifically say, if it hits any of these areas, then it must be read 3 times. So interpretation from a legal interpretation, you can also say that, well, if it doesn't fit into this, then it allows us to do that. But like I said, this has been going on for well over 10 years here and in other municipalities, and it's the first time it's been brought up.
Okay. Mr. Swayze.
Thank you. I just wanted to have a response from Ms. Soldat. I'm not exactly sure, maybe someone else can address why it came up. A similar proposal came up several years ago. I don't know, Russ, how long ago? 5 or 6 years ago? 5 years. And that was defeated soundly by council, and then it reappeared recently. And I'm not sure what is driving that. Maybe someone else can answer that as far as what is driving the ordinance or why it came before us. Your question, your question regarding the roundabout, from what I understand, you're not supposed to see around the roundabout. You're only supposed to see to your left, and you're only supposed to look to your left. That's no comfort to you, I am sure. And it's probably not a good enough answer, but that's what I was told, because I had the same question, obviously. I live on Liberty Road, so when you see all that stuff in the middle, I've had many people ask me, you can't see across, and the answer is you're not supposed to see across, only to your left, because that's the people you worry about, only what's on your left. So, as I said, that probably is no comfort to you, but I attempted to answer your questions so they wouldn't be ignored.
Okay. Anybody else?
Sure. Just to comment on your having tape of me supporting roundabouts. I have supported roundabouts in the past. My experience in Meadowwood when I went door to door at those 385 homes was different than yours. Significantly different, where more than half the people that I talked to answered the door with, the first thing they said was, where are you at on the roundabout? And what's changed for me in the last 2 years is that the traffic that I've seen on Lisa Lane getting backed up with that light, that's whatever equipment they're using. Amy's saying that they're having manufacturing issues. They're having problems with the timing. They don't know when the manufacturer's going to be able to fix them. And the council people I've talked to in Solon were adamant that they would not. It would be very unlikely that, since Mayor Drucker lives in that area and was the ward person that got that light in, that would be taken out or changed significantly because of the traffic that the Solon residents wanted to do. And I don't recall at all, and maybe it was there and I didn't see it, but I don't remember the Lisa Lane issue when we looked at this in the past. So, and I'm not sold on the dramatization that you showed earlier. That doesn't look right to me. So, but that's why I have questions now, and that's where I'm at. But
and there's no motivation to have creatively put together that simulation by GPD. I mean, that was current traffic counts based on traffic flow, increased laneage with the Lisa Lane. So I understand that
it also didn't take into effect. It didn't look like it took into effect the new construction there. I mean, I don't know. There was still a farm there. There was still a dentist office there. There wasn't the new houses within the Corbin's development, the Pulte homes that we're going to vote on later this evening on how they might affect it. They just weren't depicted in that simulation.
Well, none of. I mean, that was an overlay of the actual. You can come up. Yeah, it's just.
That's from.
You know.
Excuse me. That's aerial photography. That's basically on the Summit County data that they just use as background to give you the true reference. You know, instead of just giving you a drawing with line work, it kind of was trying to show you where you were placed and giving you a sense of place.
Yeah, the traffic counts are actually projected counts that would take into consideration all of those factors.
Yeah, the certified counts was what was used in the traffic.
Okay, and you said you'd get that for me.
Yeah, and in terms of what we've got as far as that slide, I did talk to Mike Hobbs, who from GPD, who is a traffic engineer there. He had done that actually as a Solon. As I told you last week, they are also the traffic engineers, or the newer traffic. They didn't design the current signal problem that's out there.
Okay.
But they had looked at it, and that's where that simulation, that's why it was so quick, because he had already done it for Solon to see how their impacts and Lisa Lane was affecting if we built, because they knew the roundabout was coming in there. So that's why that was, I was able to acquire that as quickly as I was.
Thank you.
So, Amy, Lisa Lane was part of that discussion earlier.
Lisa Lane is
5 years ago. Lisa Lane was.
I know in 2014, Lisa Lane already had the signal and had been discussed,
Yeah,
and we had asked, and as I said last week, we had asked the traffic engineers to look at that as we proceeded forward
I
with the design.
recall that being part of our decision.
Yeah, we
Lisa
just
Lane
didn't-
was there and part of our conversations. Okay,
We just
yes.
didn't have a beautiful simulation like that, so with, trying to give place and feeling there associated with it.
Thank you.
Can they not do an assimilation for what it would look like and what the difference would be with the regular light? And see, you're going to have 2 lanes, so can we not see what that looks like and what the difference would be? Because you're saying that there's 15 cars and there's no longer a backup. But even if you have 4 lanes there and you have 2 lanes going north and you have 15 cars and it was a light instead of a roundabout, you still would have not as much of a backup as we currently have now with just 1 lane.
Right. You are correct that you will not have as much of a backup because you're improving with widening the road.
Right.
As was discussed a little bit where I didn't comment on last week was there were some points brought up that during non-peak hours it functions real well, and that is in the report. It does say that. It also says in the report that the roundabout intersection reduces the AM and peak hour delay approximately 17% better than putting a traditional intersection. Widening the road to 5 lanes is going to improve from what it currently is out there. But when you compare the roundabout to the 5-lane intersection, it says the delays associated with the roundabout are improved above that traditional intersection by 17%, and the queuing lengths are improved an additional 33% by the roundabout. Means we don't have as much going back from those intersections because at a traffic light, we all know we sit there for what seems like 3 hours, but really is a minute in terms of can you make it through this cycle, or are you sitting through multiple cycles? So it reduces your queuing length. We all know in peak hours where you're going to have the rolling flow through. That kind of demonstrated that on some of the side lengths. You are right. In that report, it basically said a traditional intersection will do it, but the improvements were greater when you did the whole matrix of all the comparison in that report that was presented years ago showing all the different impacts associated with what you've got going. The right-of-way we talked about last week, the right-of-way is more intense right at the circle. And may account for a little bit higher numbers, and we're talking about tenths or hundredths of percent in terms of acres of right-of-way. But if you put in a traditional 5-lane intersection, you're basically going further away, north and south from there. You're basically having to develop an extra lane there, which means right now with the roundabout, we're taking the right-of-way at the intersection, and we are taking temporary right-of-way for grading as you move further away. What we would have to do is go back and buy permanent right-of-way from individuals. And I think I basically said last week the number is about 11 properties would change associated with that, which moves that right-of-way from where it currently is, which is where it's going to be in the end, another 6 feet into those properties. What that original study didn't show you was that there was also utility easement in that area. We would basically be buying into that utility easement, and the utility has to be made whole. So we have to go to that 12 feet behind where the utility easement, and we might have to extend that utility. So now you're past the mound with what you're having to purchase, whether it be an easement, permanent right-of-way, so additional impacts associated with that. In most of, other than at that tight radius and then a little bit down by Corbett's, most of those islands with the trees and the mulch, the impact that we're doing with this is impacts to the mulch beds. And we'll recut those in, remulch those when we're done. But if you go and have to extend further, now we're actually into those mulch beds, which may mean the tree lines and some of those shrubs would basically have to disappear as well with that. So the sidewalk, as I said last week with the roundabout, is staying approximately where it is right now. The elevation of it changes associated with the elevation of the roadway. But we'd have to push that sidewalk further into the backyards than where it is right now, and that should also be looked at how that would impact down the line the rear end, the back side of those residents, because I think that has a a value, an aesthetic value, a privacy value, a thing to all the people that basically are impacted most by the widening in general is the ones that have the rear yard impacts in there. So I'm going to stop now. So unless there's more questions.
I have one more question for you. And looking at the roundabout they're building now on Glenwood and 91, it looks like there's the sidewalk is going to open and go like right by the mouth of the roundabout. I thought it was going to be further back and the hawk system was going to be put in place. But if you look at the corner of by where CVS is, it looks like there's an actual crossing area that's right there, and I thought we weren't going to do anything that close.
They are back. You can put a car in front where your yield line will end up being. You don't have the island in there yet. That was an added safety measure that this council, elected to go forward with, is putting the pedestrian, or what we had originally called the hawk signal, because it kind of looks like an owl. With that basically is going in at all the crosswalks for pedestrian push buttons. Also a stop bar, which is not, you would not typically have that at that area, but again, we're putting it at the light. The pedestrian sign with this is where the crosswalk is. You've probably already noticed the concrete headers, so we'll be doing brick inlay in there to really make the crosswalks and the pedestrian crossings stand out, because that was trying to address the concern that was mainly raised associated with this was safety, that you weren't going to be able to get across the road.
I just thought it was further back. It looks like it's like right at the...
It's a car can move ahead of it. In terms of what we've got going back there, there were designs that had it in multiple locations. The final design had to do with a lot of review and back and forth between ODOT and the designers as far as the best location to put it at there.
Which one on the east side, it appears to me when you exit to go to the golf course, that one appears to me to be pretty close to the roundabout. The one on the other side, I think, is further back.
The issue that was discussed during the whole design process, if you want to be bored by an engineer, is the concern if you get them too far back, and if you took them, at one point we were looking at, well, can we make these even further back and put an island in the center, is that if you make a pedestrian walk an extreme long distance, they're just going to cut across the center of the roundabout. That's a safety concern. So there were a lot of back and forth through the whole design process to actually want to make that the usable position. Right now in our counts that we did for pedestrians, where we had 12 crossings in our counts, and I think we did the counts during the week, but 3 different times, in different years, we got about 12, and that was stealing 3 jaywalkers from further down south that were jaywalking over to Heinens instead of going up to the light to make the thing, to push that up into the intersection. So we were, it's a combination of how the user's going to use it and the best location. So there was some back and forth on that during the design process.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I think we're going to move on. Where am I? Okay, that was audience participation. Now, okay, awards and presentations. I believe we have somebody here from Waste Management to talk about the automated cart pickup system.
Good evening, members of council. Mayor, my name is Vince Crawford with Waste Management. I've been out to see you in the past, and good to see you all here again tonight. Usually I end up getting here in the winter when it's 20 below, so it's nice to come on a warm night. Hopefully you all have received this in your packet, maybe even at your home this week. This is the postcard that we sent out concerning the placement of the carts now that Waste Management is moving towards the automated trucks coming into the city. What the automated truck is, basically a truck that's got an arm mounted to the front that extends out. It'll grab that cart, it'll pick it up, and it'll dump it in the truck so the driver doesn't have to get out. We've been going through an extensive project at our hauling district to put in compressed natural gas fueling station. So once that station was put in this year, we were able to purchase these new trucks that we're now running through the city of Twinsburg. We have 5 of these trucks that are now working. Traditionally, we usually run about 14 trucks in the city every day. We're supposed to have another 3 trucks arrive in the next couple months, and then next year we'll get another batch of these automated trucks. And again, what the whole purpose of this truck is, this is the industry standard now. It's better because we're reducing safety, or we're increasing our safety by reducing the accidents and injuries for our drivers. Getting in and out of that truck 600 times a day leads to a lot of twisted ankles, hurt backs, elbows, or whatnot from slips, trips, and falls. And obviously the automated truck, it allows our employees to work much longer in their career in the residential line of business, because when you're hand lifting or even using a semi-automated truck to lift 12 to 14 tons of trash every day as opposed to using an air-operated hydraulic joystick to let the truck do the work, it's much better for our employees. So with the change of that piece of equipment comes the change of the communities, how trash needs to be set out. So, what we have to do is we have to work with the residents of Twinsburg to let them understand why, when I come home at night, my two carts were placed together and now my recycle cart is 3 feet away. Well, the driver's trying to indicate to the resident these need to be separated. And that's the message that we've conveyed in this postcard, is that when the truck comes up, that clamp comes out, it needs to have space to grab the cart and then pick it up and dump it. So these carts that are put up right next to each other, or the ones that are stacked front to back, we're not able to service. We have to get out and move one to service the other, or we have to get out and get that one from the back. So pretty simple. The carts need to go right on the curb line next to each other with a little bit of space. Our route manager today, I asked him to get out in the field to see what he saw, and he said already, day one, these postcards were mailed last week, a significant improvement already today. So our plan is that, we want to let residents, hopefully see this, see what's happening in the neighborhood. Maybe they do or don't see the truck coming down the street, but have a couple weeks here to understand why we sent this out and see the improvement. So after those 2 weeks, we have basically what's called a cart hanger that has this exact same information. And so a resident that may not have, they may have just taken this postcard and thrown it right in the trash and not even read it. They come home at night, we're going to put that cart hanger on their cart for 2 weeks. So they get that indication, oh, why am I getting this little hanger on my trash cart? And so they can see, okay, I need to separate these, or I need to take this extra trash that I keep putting, and traditionally it's the yard waste. People take their grass clippings, and just from there not understanding that all trash goes into the same truck, and have a half-empty cart of garbage, and the yard waste is on the ground. Well, all needs to go in the big 96-gallon cart. That way the truck can just pick it all up at once. There's no reason to separate these two items. All the garbage should go in the one cart, and all the trash in the other cart. So we want to take those 2 weeks afterwards to then just put these cart hangers on. Again, those residents that need that extra reminder. The following 2 weeks, we'll actually have a specific tag made up that we'll put an indication on that cart, that's a warning. Please, put your trash in, or please set your cart side by side. And the side by side, the route manager did want me to mention, the biggest culprit he sees is the people that put it right up next to the mailbox. We don't want to damage somebody's mailbox. When that big hydraulic arm comes out, that's when the mailbox is going to lose every time. So we don't want to hit a mailbox, and we want to give the resident the understanding of why to move that over. And then after that 2 weeks of then tagging and trying to give that indication for residents what to do, we are always going to tag and service an account where the cart is not set out properly. If the carts, if the resident, for whatever reason, they're still not setting them out the way we want, we still need to service that cart, and we will do so. But the resident who continues to have a half-loaded cart and 2 or 3 bags of yard waste that are set on the ground, we will tag that and leave that additional waste that should be in the cart. And they're only going to learn if they understand, hey, week 1, why didn't I have this picked up? Well, because your cart is half full, and that material needs to be in here. And so, Waste Management, we do this type of collection in a lot of communities across Northeast Ohio, and we know that you have to go through this phase of giving the people the information, letting them understand, and then trying to get them to follow into protocol. And then once you don't pick that trash up for the first time, then they really understand, okay, now it needs to go in there. So we'll continue to work with the service department on that to make sure that we're informing them, to keep them up to date with everything as much as possible. I know that today we've already received some emails back and forth saying, we've had some residents that on the first go around, they decided that, they just have one little bag. And so they didn't want the 96-gallon carton. So now after receiving this postcard, they've requested, oh, I guess I do want this card. So we're working with the service department, as I always do, to try and keep all the residents up to speed with what they need as far as the cart or the cart size. And that's really all I had, unless you had any questions for me. I did have one last thing, was just on the recycling. I know most communities do like to know how their recycling program is going. I think, as I've told you in the past, recycling is going well in Twinsburg. 1,470 tons of recyclable materials is what we picked up last year. And that averages out pretty good. It's about 8 pounds per pickup of every resident that we service. So that's a good weekly number. What I will tell you is another message is, if a recycle cart is half full or only or less than half full, don't put it out. Wait till it's completely full. Because what we're trying to do is capture all those petroleums and aluminums and papers, and we're trying to recycle. But when we go through a community and we pick up a bunch of half-empty bins, we're wasting a lot of time and fuels and effort trying to recycle and recapture something in a service that's really kind of wasted because the cart isn't completely full. So that's just a message as you're talking to your residents, if you let them know, hey, if your cart's not full, and we see this, guy opens up the bin, and you will still see these trucks where our guys still have to get out because we're not fully automated yet. But he opens up the recycle cart, and there's 2 milk gallon jugs in there, and that's it. You know, that's kind of a waste for us to try to service if it's not completely full. So I've taken up enough of your time for tonight. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them.
Hey, Vince, could we make a deal with you? I'll put my containers 3 feet apart if you promise to not put them in the middle of my driveway.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'll be good with that. And truthfully, Joe's a very good driver in my neighborhood. I like him. He's a great guy, and he typically doesn't do it, but every once in a while I got to get out of that car and move that thing out of the middle of my driveway. So I'll do what you want, and you guys do what I need. I'm good.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I've heard that comments from other people, and in Seven Hills, where we just rolled out some carts, literally, and we do fall guilty of doing that every once in a while. But I have actually seen where the cart was sitting there, and on a windy day, all of a sudden the wind will just push that cart a little bit, which is kind of shocking. So, just giving you honest.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Because some of my neighbors don't want the big carts because they don't have that much trash. And so I did see this week they had their little black bag out, and they have a small recycling, the old green ones that we used to have, little square rectangle ones.
Okay.
So how are you going to accomplish what you're trying to do with those residents?
So, yeah, unfortunately, I think when we first transitioned to find out that some of these recycled bins that are still out there, that is an issue that we need to solve and work with our driver team to remove those, because those are the recycle bin, or the accounts that traditionally get missed if we have a swing driver or a new guy, because he's looking for that big thing with the yellow lid on it, and this resident has the little bin that nobody else in the community has. So we do need to address that, unfortunately, to put in the smaller 65-gallon recycle cart. As I was talking with Mr. Campbell from the service department, we know that there are residents that are elderly, and they're all by themselves, and they make one small bag of trash every week. If that's what they have, then we're gonna stop and pick that up. We understand that in every community we have that. It's the person that's of our age that has this 5 of these trash bags, because they have a regular family on the ground, and they're not utilizing the cart. That's what we're really trying to stop.
And then you said, they have those big bags that are paper for lawn trash.
Yes.
If your cart's already full, you can't put those out?
No. As long as your cart's full, the extra stuff we're still going to take, absolutely. But we just want the cart to be full first.
You answered one question that a lot of people ask me in my neighborhood, and they always ask, do you guys really recycle stuff that's in the recycle bin? So it's good to know that you do.
We are always would love to extend an invitation for council and administration to come down and see the recycling plant in Akron. I think you'd be thoroughly impressed, and you would learn a lot about what happens to your material, how it's processed, and understand all the reasons of why we want single stream recycling in America and what some of the issues are. But I can tell you wholeheartedly, when we pick up recycling, it goes to the recycling plant.
Brian?
I was going to ask you the question about the seniors with, some of them can't handle pushing your thing out to the street. But like Mr. Scafidi, somehow one day, like 2 weeks ago, after you guys had gone through, all the carts were side by side sitting in the street. The wind must have blown them out there.
I know exactly, because I did get the call now. We had a gentleman that came down to help us from Michigan, and for whatever reason in Michigan, that was their practice, because we got a call from the service department, what's going on, and we had to get a hold of that guy on the radio and say, that's what you do there, it's not how we do work here in Ohio.
I pulled in my driveway and looked up and down and went, no, this is different.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, I guess we're done. Thank you.
All right,
Vince.
thank you very much.
Appreciate
Have a
it.
good
Thanks
evening.
very much. Okay, now we will move on to council communication and committee reports. Finance committee met this evening. First of all, good evening. I'm a member of the finance committee. I'm chairman. We met this evening, and Ms. House did a very good job of explaining and talking about the first half revenue and expenditures, as well as our debt obligations. And we also set up the budget timeline for the budget for 2017. So I know the mayor and the department heads are working on that, and our capital improvements board will be getting together shortly to start their work in September, I believe, is their first meeting once the budget comes out and the capital requests come out as well. We had a pretty long agenda this evening. So with the with time constraint that we had because we had a public hearing, we put some of the agenda items off until our next meeting, which will be held on August 23rd at 6 o'clock. So that'll be the next finance committee meeting. Capital improvement, like I said, will be meeting, convening sometime in September. I know we have a public works meeting scheduled sometime in September as well.
13th.
The 13th at 6 o'clock. And the compensation committee meeting has not met. Other than that, that's all I have this evening under my report. Mr. Steele.
The ARB met on July the 7th. They approved a couple of additions to houses, temporary signs, a couple of monument signs, temporary for buildings or businesses in our town, and a bunch of wall signs for a new or a new name for a company, Accident on Highland. That's it.
That's it. Okay. Ms. McFerrin.
Okay, Parks and Recreation, I've heard some great reviews about the pool that's open now, and learned that anyone can stop over for a lunch or snacks and take advantage of the cafe that apparently has really good burritos. The next meeting for Parks and Recreation is August 25th. There's another concert in the park this week, and it's Disco Inferno. So anyone looking for something to do Friday at 6:30. And the farmers market continues every Friday at Creekside from 3 to 6:30. The chamber, they just had their 28th annual golf outing, which was a huge success. Just finished the Taste of Twinsburg, and upcoming is the 4th annual Clam Bake and Fall Festival, and they asked me to relay save the date October 7th. Golf Advisory, the tentative next date for our meeting will be Thursday, August 11th at 7, and compensation hasn't met yet. Thank you.
That's it. Mr. Fury.
I attended the Finance Committee earlier this evening, and the Planning Commission doesn't meet again until August 16th. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Roden.
I have actually no report this evening. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Soresi.
Well, we have 25 days until the Twins Days Festival. We met just yesterday, the mayor and myself and some department heads, the safety forces and the CERT team, et cetera, to make sure last-minute questions and make sure things were prepared in our coordination with the city. And the other thing that I had is, Amy, can I ask you a question? On Liberty Road, we put in a crosswalk so that people can go from the neighborhood to the park there. And I thought when we discussed doing that, we were going to put up flashing lights. Somebody jumped out of there the other day and scared me to death because they were going across the crosswalk, and I wasn't going very fast, but there's there's no,
We have the the yellow placard that's up. I don't believe we have any flashing lights there at this point in time. I think we were testing some lights somewhere.
But we did talk about flashing
I
lights.
thought that
we
was
talked
by,
about doing that. That's
that was
the
Post,
people on
though.
that road are
I think
crazy.
it's down by the nature center. I thought we were doing it by Post and the nature center.
What do you call those?
The hawk thing I thought we
Hawk,
talked
thank you.
about.
Well, we were not going. We were looking more at how to delineate those intersections. We were not looking at the hawk as our first option there.
Okay, well, whatever. I just think it's a concern. And
Okay.
if it's
There's
not-
there's no blinker on top of the what we could do is look at putting some sort of blinker on top of that pedestrian
the sign,
sign.
That was going to be our first initial.
something to indicate that.
Why did I thought there was one?
And actually, I had a hard time seeing the actual crosswalk itself, but
Everything, all the lines will be repainted. Usually we do that in July, and again, we do that before school starts, so
Okay.
You'll be seeing those over the next month. It's usually all painted, most of it's all painted before even Twins Day.
thank you. And that's all I had.
Thank you.
Sam.
Mrs. Stoffer.
The Finance Committee met, Mr. Scafidi gave the report on that. We are going to have a Safety Committee meeting on August 23rd, right before the Finance Committee meeting, so if you're interested, it'll be at 5:45 here. Community Relations will meet on September 22nd at 5:30, and there will be a BZA meeting on July 27th. And I have my committees have not met, so that's all right.
That's it. Okay, Mayor, your report.
Yes, thank you. Just a short report tonight, but just a couple updates on some projects going around town. Mortis Greenway, if you live up in that area, that is a little behind schedule. We're working as hard as we can with the contractors to keep that project on pace. Thanks again to the residents who are dealing with that particular project going on right now. Route 91, last week we, I believe, had to flip over to the opposite side. That project is on schedule, so we're hoping that stays on pace. And I know it's we've needed a lot of patience with both the businesses and the residents to get through that. Project that's going to be happening is the resurfacing of 82 between 480 and Macedonia. So it should be a fairly quick project, but just want to make the residents aware. If you see some construction mobilized there, that's what's going to happen. It's going to be a grinding and a resurfacing that's going to occur. A couple things coming up. Council will be on break, so we're not going to meet again until the end of August, but I know there was, for Parks and Rec, there was an announcement of the concert this week, but we do have, before we meet again, there will be 2 more concerts. So on the 29th, there's a Michael Jackson cover band called Who's Bad. It's supposed to be fantastic. We're actually selling those tickets. Right now, that's our most popular concert, so if you want to go to that, you may want to get tickets. And then Face to Face, which is a Billy Joel, Elton John tribute band, and that's on August 12th. So those are coming up. We have been planning with the police force, and I've done a couple announcements on this, and it's going to occur before we convene again, but Twinsburg has not participated in National Night Out, which is a community police event that's across the nation. There's other communities adjacent to us that participate, and some of our younger officers requested that we do this. So we have a committee that's put together, and we've got a big night planned for the residents and our police force. We've got a kid zone with bounces. We'll be serving food. We're going to have a safety force challenge. This is all going to be out at the stadium on August 2nd between 4 and 8. So you're going to see signs. You're going to see announcements. We hope it's a great event, well attended, but encourage you to grab your families and come up and meet our police force. We're going to have rangers there from the Metro Parks and SWAT team and other types of bunch of different police vehicles. So it should be fun for all families. Coming up, Mr. Tracy mentioned Twins Day. Again, is going to be August 6th and 7th. We did have a meeting. It's going to be another great event. It always is well attended here in the city, both by our residents and from people internationally. So we're looking forward to that again. From an economic development standpoint, I've got the FedEx ribbon cutting coming this Thursday. So this is the official grand opening of the FedEx facility. If you've already noticed and driven by, the Amazon structure has walls already. So they are on a pace that I've never witnessed before in terms of building that facility. Area that's been cleared next to McDonald's is a Dunkin' Donuts that's going in, so that is moving along. We should be seeing some more progress on that throughout the next 6 to 8 weeks. Coming up, I know we had a moment of silence earlier, but I want everyone just to remember, the anniversary of the Josh McTarian incident is tomorrow. So I just want to keep, all our officers, we're dealing with situations in Dallas and all over this country right now with our police officers just being targeted. These guys put their lives on the line every single day, and tomorrow's a very special day here in Twinsburg. So, when you're praying tonight, make sure you keep not only Josh and his family in your prayers, but all the officers around this country that are dealing with all the situations that we're dealing with right now. That's all I have.
Okay. Department head reports.
Yes. Chris, you want to start?
Good evening, Council. The Service Department recently completed asphalt repairs on Ridgewood Court following a water line repair by Cleveland Water. This is something we have been doing for years, but I wanted to let you know that we've also added to that. We are going to begin doing the landscape repairs. We've had some issues with Cleveland Water in the past, just kind of a slow process getting landscape repairs done. So we've decided to do that through the Service Department. So again, when landscaping goes back after a repair, it takes a while for that area to settle, so we have to wait for that. But overall, we're gonna get this stuff done a little bit quicker than it has been. So looking forward to that. Street sweeping, we started the second round yesterday, and we expect that to go a lot quicker. We've got the new equipment, but our first trip through took us about a month. It was pretty heavy out there. So this round should go quite a bit quicker. Branch chipping, the fourth round of the year was completed. It may have been completed today, or it's either going to be today or tomorrow. The next round will be Monday, August 1st. We'll start that one. And this round, again, took about 6 days. So we always ask the residents to get those branches out there on the first day of those rounds. Storm area checks. We've been through the fifth round this year, and still no debris. So that's good news. Our sidewalk leveling program, we're still kind of developing that program. We've got a new material that we're going to be starting to use tomorrow. So I haven't really gotten to the point of knowing how many lineal feet we can do, how quickly, and how many sections we can do per year. But we will probably get to that point. We're pretty hopeful with this new material that it works a little bit better than the material we have been using. So we will stay after that, and probably when you come back from recess, I'll have some numbers for you. In that, as far as new programs go, the hydrant painting is going really well. The process is working well. It really it gets all that old paint off of those hydrants, and we're spray painting them, and they're looking. I think they're looking pretty good. We are averaging about 70 hydrants a day, which is huge.
How many do we have?
A little bit over 1,400.
Thank you.
And so I think it's a program that we're going to be able to. We think the paint we're using is much better, so we're hoping that it lasts on those hydrants a little bit longer. But I think it's a program that we're going to be able to maintain just a little bit better. If we have to go back out there and paint, we can do it much quicker. So,
Chris, I happened to be home when they did. I have 2 on my property, and I was amazed at how quick they get that old paint off, and really not a whole lot of a mess either.
No,
and then they painted. A couple days later, they came by and sprayed them both, and heck, it was really easy. It was nice.
Yeah, when they strip them, the paint it just goes to dust, so you don't see that. And then they're protecting the surrounding area when they go ahead and paint those, and it's working out really well. We're really pleased with that. So, that's the other thing, kind of related to that. A couple years ago, maybe 5 years ago, we went through and we painted a bunch of the fiberglass streetlight poles that typically Ohio Edison would paint. but they had budget issues, and it kind of fell to us or not get done. So we did it, and we found that program goes pretty quick. We're going to put an inventory together at the end of this year. We think we're going to try to go through, and there were some we didn't get finished the last time around, but we want to do that program as well and keep these poles touched up.
But they still have to replace them if they're damaged.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. So we're gonna look at that for next year. So that'll be another nice program. Waldo Way and Sharonbrook, we completed sewer cleaning. Crews are putting the signs out now for the next area. I'm not sure what area that is, but they'll be cleaning sewer lines for the rest until bad weather hits. So we've got a ways to go on that. And just to note that the microturbine at wastewater is still running well. We're up to about $23,000 in savings with natural gas and electricity costs. So going pretty well. And that's my report for tonight.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Assistant Chief Asa? It's really random.
Good morning, folks, or good evening. Couldn't work all day, sorry. I'm standing in for Chief Morgan, obviously. The calls for the year are down 5% over last year, and last time I presented, and I'll give you the totals, 1194 for the year, we were down 12% on fire. Fire runs meaning anytime we bring a fire truck or something that's not a rescue squad. So it could be a gas leak, working fire, whatever. Started looking into it, and I said that it may be because of the reduction in false alarms, which is a good thing, keeps our guys off the road. And that is true, but it's not to the extent that I thought it was. What we forgot was the brutal winters we had in 2015, where we had frozen pipes. So we had something like 60 to 70 residences that were affected. So the reason we were down, in 2014 over 15, that's why, because we didn't have that brutal winter. We didn't have the fallen ceilings and the fire department going into the houses. So, but our EMS calls are up 14%. So we're on that upswing. Some other notable, public education last month was big. I've been tracking that starting this year. We had over 14 events, 21 hours. We made personal contact with 315 people. That's personal contact. That's smoke detectors. That's talking to people. That's going to the safety town. That all those things. So our firefighters and inspectors are very busy along with the educators. Siren test. The siren is working properly. And on that note, Twins Days is coming up, so we are going to delay the siren test until the following week, which will be August 13th. We don't want the sirens to go off when we got a whole town full of people at noon wondering where to go. So if you do hear the sirens on the first Saturday of the month and it's bad out, it's the real deal. So it's not a test. And we will publicize that on social media and hopefully in the newspaper. Speaking of the newspaper, there's some articles that were in the Bulletin today. Both of them front page. One was CERT. We're doing some recruitment, and CERT was busy the last month, and really remarkable month. They did the food drive. They're busy with Rock the Park. They are signed up to do National Night Out. They're going to do some of their public relations and more recruitment, and they're signed up for Twins Days. This group of volunteers is just amazing. We know whatever we ask them to do, they're out, and that's just the community event stuff. It's not even if we get the search and rescue or they need us. So they're ready to go. So I'm very proud of that organization. There's also an article about distracted drivers. If you haven't read it, make copies and give it to your neighbors. And it was just a conversation I had with Gina Mace from the Bulletin, and she came out and did some ride time, talked to the guys. So gives you a view of what we see on a daily basis, and not just us, all the police departments and surrounding areas about distracted drivers and not knowing what to do, pulling left or right. So it's a pretty compelling article, and hopefully everybody gets a chance to read that. Speaking of hydrants that Chris was talking about, that is completed. Our program's completed flushing them. We had 1855. If you're wondering why it's higher than Chris's number, because we also flush the ones in the township. Speaking of the paint jobs, Chris, they are great. And from my standpoint, 20 years, 25 years of paint, when you're trying to open up a hydrant, that hydrant run slips off the top of the nut when it's got a big, quarter inch of paint, and it damages the hydrant, and it can hurt firefighters. So, sounds kind of lame, but we're big in the paint jobs on these things. It's nice seeing, the shape of the hydrant and not just paint. Some notable things that the chief wanted me to mention. Actually, CERT again. On the day everybody was downtown celebrating the Cavs playoff, victory, I was at work. I could have gone down the parade, but we had a busy day ourselves. We did 31 houses, installed about 150 smoke detectors with the Red Cross and CERT. So, actually, by the time we were done, I still got to watch the rest of the parade. So, but it wasn't a total loss. But that was a busy month, busy day for us. And in Summit County, we are one of the leaders. It includes the bigger cities with this program. So I'm very proud to be associated with that. One of our firefighters, Jeff Hall, traveled to FDIC, Fire Department Instructors Conference, and he was at a class with these new trainers, and we talked about new technologies. Came back and says, I'm going to try this grant, and it's a private grant, Firehouse Subs, which is, if you ever do private grants, there's not a whole lot of money there, and it goes quick. So he did the grant application. I reviewed it for him, and I told him, I said, don't be depressed. It's your first one, first attempt. If the money runs out, well, it didn't, and he got us $24,000 to purchase this digital laser. It simulates fire without us having to get a structure, put a firefighter, in danger by putting pallets or whatever. And it does this great simulation. It does smoke. It does flames. So we're looking forward to a lot of use out of this device. And like I said, you don't have to go through the paperwork in a PA 1403, which means if you get a structure, you got to take all the shingles off and asbestos. We don't have to do any of that. It inspired me to, when we do the fire extinguisher training, we do it outside. We have a propane thing, and we light it up, and people put it out. So I got with my staff at Fire Prevention. I says, where are the fires going to be if they're in an office building? Where they're going to be inside? So I'm looking in the budget to get a very small scaled-down version of the one that goes inside. So it's laser. We're not wasting any extinguisher. You put the thing in the corner of the office, and it's very effective. So we're looking at 21st century technologies for training the public as well. So we're excited about that. That being said, echoing what the mayor said, tomorrow is the anniversary for Josh. So we'd like to reassert that our memory of Josh, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
And I just want to mention, because you can rest. So. Our CERT team, when this was first put together and brought forward, this was a emergency response team that I kind of envisioned as being, if we had a catastrophe here, these people would come out of their homes and help. But if you've been to any event in Twinsburg, our CERT team has a presence at every single event we have, and these people come out day in and day out and help with traffic and help monitor people and help. So I would just ask that you thank them, and I would hope that maybe at the end of this summer we could get a appreciation dinner or something for those guys, because you really are taking them for granted now, because every event you go to, they're there in their green vests and walking around and making sure everything's is safe and preparing. So this is, I think, far beyond than anything that I expected, and we've got a great group doing that. So thanks. Chief Noga.
Good evening. During the month of June, the City of Twinsburg Communications Center generated 2,171 calls for service among the Twinsburg Police and Fire Departments and the Reminderville Police and Fire Departments. The total call count for the year is 12,740. Twinsburg police officers arrested and or cited 147 suspects into court on 215 different counts. Twinsburg officers issued 158 written warnings and 4 parking citations. Officers investigated 34 traffic crashes, of which 6 were injury crashes, 9 were on private property, and none were fatal.
Our new Community Services Bureau has been fast out of the gate. They've been focusing on presentations throughout the community on scams and frauds. Those are kind of dynamic. They're always changing, so we're trying to get the word out, especially to our seniors, about the different scams and frauds that are out there. You can check our Facebook page occasionally. They'll have the listing of their next presentations. I just want to say thank you to our community. The outpouring of support that we have received over the last 5 days, folks stopping by the station to thank us, dropping off pizza, cookies, sending us cards. It means a lot to us, and it means a lot to me. It's a privilege and an honor to serve as a police officer in this community, and the support that we receive. I've felt it every year that I've been here. I felt it 8 years ago when we lost Josh, and it's just great to see that. And we promise to maintain that support in the community, continuing to do what we do as professionals in providing law enforcement services. So, thank you to everybody for the support. It really means a lot. That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief, and your staff.
Chris, we doing anything tomorrow?
Be a short moment of silence and maybe a short service at the memorial at 10 a.m.
Okay.
Thank you. Karen?
We received our first advance for the month of July. We are down by 1%, and for the year we're up by 10%. Once we get the full distribution, I'll give a full report on our collections for the month of July. But I'll also, since you will be on summer break, I will be sending you information on that. We also received our biannual refund for our local income tax from Regional Income Tax Agency, and the amount we received is $319,379. That also was recorded for the month of June. We are already into our budget process for 2017. I've passed out the timeline for scheduling of dates and reviews for the budget hearings. The department heads have access now to budget worksheets to prepare. The operating budget is due on August 1st. Keep you updated on that process. And that's all I have to report.
Thanks, Karen. I believe that's all we have tonight.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to the legislation on tonight's agenda. First, we have Ordinance 56, 2016.
An ordinance rezoning certain property parcel 64-05379 in Twinsburg, Ohio, owned by the City of Twinsburg from PUD and public facilities to R5 single-family cluster district use.
Okay, Ordinance 56, 2016 does stand on its second reading. We've talked about it at several meetings and our caucus meetings, and tonight it is up for adoption, so I'll make a motion that we adopt Ordinance 56, 2016. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury, second. Any discussion?
This is to rezone land on the corner of 91 and Glenwood from public use and PF to R5. It'll have to be voted on this fall. That language is coming later than that.
Okay. Anybody else? Shannon, call the roll, please.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Ceresi?
No.
Mr. Rudin?
Yes.
Okay, Ordinance 56, 2016 passes 6-1. Next, we have Ordinance 57, 2016.
An ordinance rezoning certain property parcel 64-08056 in Twinsburg, Ohio, owned by the City of Twinsburg from C1 commercial use to R5 single-family cluster district use.
Okay, again, 57, 2016 stands on its second reading this evening. We've discussed it at the committee, at the caucus meetings, and 2 separate council meetings. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion that we adopt Ordinance 57, 2016. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Stoffer seconds. Discussion.
This is 0.85 acres of commercial land on the corner. It's the dentist's office. We'd like to package that property together with an R5 zoning. Again, this will be on the ballot, and the ballot language will be voted on later this evening.
Okay. Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Sorese?
No.
Okay, ordinance 57, 2016 passes 6-1. Next, we have ordinance 63, 2016.
An ordinance authorizing right-of-way donations and easements of city-owned property for the State Route 91 Phase 2 Widening Improvement Project.
Okay, ordinance 63, 2016 stands on second reading. It's been discussed at several other meetings, so I'd make a motion that we adopt ordinance 63, 2016. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Sorese, second. Discussion. Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Sorese?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 63, 2016 passes 7-0. Ordinance 65, 2016.
An ordinance creating Chapter 1369 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Twinsburg, establishing a rental dwelling housing license code.
Okay, once again, ordinance 65 2016 stands on its second reading. It's been discussed at our caucus meetings as well as our 2 readings on the council. So at this time, I'd make a motion that we adopt ordinance 65.
I'd like to say something.
Okay, you could.
After the-
I got to do this. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 65, 2016. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Sorese, second. Okay, Mr. Steele, go ahead.
Okay. Earlier today, I called Mr. Maestros. I wanted to double check with him on whether I should actually get in on the voting on this because I do own a rental house here in the city. In discussing with Dave, my objection has been to this has always been because the large apartment complexes in town are not included. Dave, you indicated to me that since I've been consistent and that it would apply to me, that you didn't think it was a problem for me to vote on this. Am I correct?
Well, I would indicate, I mean, you asked whether or not your ownership of one rental property would affect this, and I think that consistently throughout the discussion, the issue becomes, do you have a conflict of interest, and is your ability to vote impaired by your ownership? And I don't believe the $50 application fee would sway it one way or another. So no, in my opinion, you've exhibited no conflict in this, so I would have no objection based upon that of you voting.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, council?
I have a quick question, and I'm just going to ask Bob. Earlier, somebody asked what was the impetus behind this, and I don't know that it was ever answered. Is there anyone who could answer that? Where?
To maintain rental property, I thought was the way that
What was it? What started all this? Is what I'm looking for. Would you mind?
Yeah, Ross, would you please?
I just want to make sure that gets answered.
My view in proposing this legislation was to have another source of tool to monitor. We already know about apartments. All our tenants there, we know it's rental units. Over the past couple of years, I've come across some rental units that we're not aware of. So it's just a mechanism to have.
So we know
trying
who's
to keep a registration list so we are aware of the landlords and tenants.
Okay. So it had.
when she's done.
Yeah, you done.
That's all. I just.
Mr.
I
Fury,
think,
go ahead.
So Mr. Dursing made several points where he thought that this was in conflict with other regulations with the state. Do you have any? Have you researched those conflicts in the past, or were you aware of that wording?
I've heard questions about that, yes. I've researched it. And like I said, we do not approach the property until we come to a scheduled appointment. So if they're allowing us to enter the premise, enter the property, then there's not a conflict.
And what if they don't allow you to enter the property?
I'm sorry?
What happens if they don't allow you to enter the property? Then what?
There is a mechanism in there to try, but we'll try to communicate with them. There's a warrant, but it has to be something substantial for me to say I need to enter the premise. The application come in that allows me at that time. If there's a complaint coming into my office and we have this registered, I have to follow up on that complaint. I I had to make sure it's a legit complaint. If I could cooperation from them, I always try the neighbors next door to see if I have access on their property to look at. But I still can't approach their property only from the public right of way without permission.
Okay. Mr. Maestros.
Thank you. If I could, I think it raises a good point, because I think that the issue that was raised by the resident and some of the case law that was cited by the resident addressed warrantless searches of properties, which really deals with police action, that being action of entering somebody's property without the right to be there. And I can tell you that nothing in this ordinance or our building department is not going to go into anybody's property without their allowing us or asking us to go in. Okay, this does not rise to that level, or we have the authority now because of this legislation to go into somebody's property. As Mr. Rodick indicated, his exterior observations are going to be made from the public right of way. They will ask if they have the necessary reason to ask. If they're told no, they are not entering the property, the interior of the property. That's not part and parcel of this, and we're not looking to authorize that at that time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Rodick.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Sorese?
No.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
No.
Mr. Fury?
No.
Okay, ordinance, is it 4-3?
Mm-hmm.
Ordinance 65, 2016 passes 4-3. Okay, next we have ordinance 66, 2016.
An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with E.L. Robinson Engineering for engineering services related to the Darrow Road Sidewalk Project.
Okay, this also stands on its second reading. So tonight I would make a motion that we adopt ordinance 66, 2016. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Any discussion?
It's my understanding that the cost of this for a sidewalk from Post to McTerry, just for the engineering costs, are $345,000. I thought we were under the impression that we were going to vote this no, declared from our calendar.
I agree with that. I don't have a problem with that.
Also, I would like to add, we did say we'll take a look at it later in the year with no promises, but
Right.
we'll take a look.
Yeah, this is a project I think we discussed that we all support, but from a financial standpoint, the numbers came back quite a bit higher than what we anticipated, and so from a budget planning process that we're early in, this is one that we'll look at toward the end of the year.
We've had road projects that had less engineering fees than this less than a mile sidewalk, so.
Okay, Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Scafidi?
No.
Mr. Fury?
No.
Mr. Sorese?
No.
Mr. Roden?
No.
Mrs. Stoffer?
No.
Ms. McFerrin?
No.
Mr. Steele?
No.
Okay, ordinance 66, 2016 fails 7-0. Next we have ordinance 72, 2016.
An ordinance accepting the lands and improvements dedicated to public use for the Corbett's Farm Phase 2 subdivision, accepting the maintenance bond and reducing the performance bond accordingly.
Take the amendment.
Dave, okay, we have to start with an amendment to add the emergency clause?
Correct.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to make amendment to ordinance
72.
72, 2016, place it on, to add our standard emergency clause.
I'll second.
Mr. Roden seconds. Any discussion on that?
The reason for the emergency clause being added is we want to get this cleared tonight on part of the builder. This has been approved by the planning commission and discussed that we would do this earlier this evening.
Seeing as we'll be on recess and we won't reconvene until the end of August.
Yes.
So they asked if we would do this. Okay, Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sorese?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes. Now, I would make a motion that we suspend the rules on ordinance 72, 2016, place it on its third and final reading, and declare it an emergency. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Go ahead.
Mr. Roden seconds. Any discussion? Okay, call the roll, Shannon.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mr. Sorese?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Okay, now I need a motion for adoption.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
A second.
Mr. Fury seconds. Discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Sorese?
Yes.
Ms. McPherson?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes. Ordinance 72, 2016 passes 7-0 as an emergency. We have ordinance 73, 2016.
An ordinance amending Chapter 1195 of the codified ordinances of the City of Twinsburg regarding site development regulations.
Okay, and that's its second reading tonight. Resolution 76, 2016.
A resolution acknowledging council's receipt and review of the monthly financial statements submitted by the Finance Department for April, May, and June 2016.
Make a motion that we adopt Resolution 76, 2016. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Stoffer seconds. Discussion? Okay. Call the roll, Shannon.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Sorese?
Yes.
Ms. McPherson?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 76, 2016 passes 7-0. We have Resolution 77, 2016.
A resolution requesting and authorizing the Summit County Board of Elections to place upon the City of Twinsburg ballot at the general election of November 8, 2016, the question whether Ordinance 56, 2016, rezoning certain property from PUD and public facilities use to R5 single-family cluster district use be approved.
Okay, I need somebody to make a motion to adopt Resolution 77, 2016.
So moved.
Mr. Sorese, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. McPherson, any discussion? Shannon?
Mr. Sorese?
Yes.
Ms. McPherson?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 77, 2016 passes 7-0. Resolution 78, 2016.
A resolution requesting and authorizing the Summit County Board of Elections to place upon the City of Twinsburg ballot at the general election of November 8, 2016, the question whether Ordinance 57, 2016, rezoning certain property from C1 commercial use to R5 single-family cluster district use be approved.
I'll make a motion that we adopt Resolution 78, 2016. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Roden. Mr. Fury, I think I went too fast the last one. Did you want to say something?
57, excuse me,
77.
this resolution is simply the ballot language for 57, and the previous resolution was the ballot language for 56, and rezoning the property at 91 in Glenwood.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to point out what was said earlier in the caucus, that this may be changed by the Board of Elections, the wording, but the intent will still be.
We submit ours, yeah, but they could change it if they so choose. All right, any other discussion? Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Ms. McPherson?
Yes.
Mr. Sorese?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Okay, Resolution 78, 2016 passes 7-0. Next, we have Ordinance 79, 2016.
An ordinance accepting the bid of Environmental Management Specialists Incorporated for the underground storage tank removals and declaring an emergency.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules on Ordinance 79, 2016, place it on its third and final reading, and declare it an emergency. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Fury.
Doesn't matter.
Okay, good. Any discussion? Fury, Mr. Fury. Discussion?
The reason we want an emergency is because we want to get this handled this summer. This is remove an empty gas tank by the fire department.
The underground storage
Underground.
tanks. Yeah. Okay, Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Sorese?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Ms. McPherson?
Yes.
Okay, now I need a motion from someone to adopt Ordinance 79, 2016 as an emergency.
So moved.
Mr. Sorese, would like to second?
I'll second.
Ms. McPherson, any discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Sorese?
Yes.
Ms. McPherson?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes. Ordinance 79, 2016 passes 7-0 as an emergency. Next, we have Ordinance 80, 2016.
An ordinance accepting the bid of Apex Construction and Maintenance Company Incorporated for the ADA entry ramp for Government Center project and declaring an emergency.
I make a motion that we suspend the rules on ordinance 80, 2016, place it on its third and final reading, and declare it an emergency. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Roden seconds. Discussion.
The purpose of the emergency is to get an ADA compliant ramp built up for entrance to council chambers. It's been discussed for several years, and when we get it done this summer.
And it also adds doors, automatic doors as well.
Automatic doors.
Okay. Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mr. Cerisi?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Okay, now I need a motion for adoption of 80, 2016 as an emergency.
So moved.
Mr. Roden, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Cerisi? Okay. Discussion on the adoption.
It's tough when you do have the Scafidi Cerisi thing still. Sometimes.
It is hard. Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Roden?
Yes.
Mr. Cerisi?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Scafidi?
Yes.
Mr. Steele?
Yes.
Ms. McFerrin?
Yes.
Mrs. Stoffer?
Yes.
Okay, ordinance 80, 2016 passes 7-0 as an emergency. And that concludes our legislation for this evening on our agenda. Next, we will move to unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. We can start with Mr. Maestros. Anything tonight?
Nothing. Thank you.
All right, Mayor?
Nothing tonight. We'll see all the residents back here in about a month.
Okay. Mrs. Stoffer?
You know, I am getting some calls still on that storage facility for the mulch and stuff on the golf course, and I was just wondering.
Yeah,
if there's any...
I did talk with, actually, we had a meeting yesterday, and I did talk to, Chris is going to sneak out of here. No.
Oh, you know, how was that?
So I talked to Jim. I talked to Jim about that. I requested that we go ahead and finish the landscaping around it. I did request that we purchase immediately some brown tarps instead of blue, and then we're going to look at, we're going to look at some possible screening. I mean, they're in frantic mode right now, maintaining that course and doing everything. So I think just replacing the color of the tarps will make a difference on the sight line, getting some mulch around it. But I'm still.
Was it
we're
dark
looking at
brown
it.
that you
Yeah,
were looking
we're
at?
not ignoring it.
Okay, thank
Were
you.
you looking at dark brown or light brown?
Dark brown.
Okay.
Yeah, a dark brown that would blend in with the product, so that it doesn't kind of stand out when you're driving down that street.
Okay, thank you. I'll continue on that, yeah.
Anything else, Mrs. Stoffer?
I have nothing.
Mr. Steele?
I have nothing.
Okay. Mr. Roden?
I have nothing, thank you.
Okay, all I have is that tonight will be our last meeting. We will be going on summer recess. We will be back in session on August 23rd at 7 o'clock here in the City Hall. And that's the end of my report. I hope everyone has a nice and safe summer. Ms. McFerrin?
I have nothing.
Okay.
Just wish everyone a safe summer. That's a good idea.
Okay. Mr. Cerisi?
Nothing here, thanks.
Mr. Fury?
8 years ago, Mr. Scafidi, Mr. Cerisi, and I were here. We had a really bad weekend when we had to come in and hear about Josh. And as time moves on, it's nice that we're going to be able to celebrate him this Friday at his golf out. And just thinking about it. So I wish everybody has a happy and safe summer as well. And that's all I have. Unless we want to discuss absent members. Just kidding.
Mrs. Collins?
Nothing,
Anything?
thank you.
No? Mrs. House, anything from you tonight? Final words? That's it? Before vacation, I mean, you gotta do that.
Enjoy your time off.
Thank you.
Do your homework from Karen.
All right, let's see what else we have. No absent members, that's it. Then that's the end of our business, and we are adjourned.
What's that?